Hey everybody, Dylan here. Welcome to Beep Boop Loot. Today we're talking about Starfield, specifically things I wish I knew when I started the game that the game doesn't do a very good job of telling you. Here are 15 tips and tricks I wish I knew sooner about Starfield. Plus, I've added a super secret 16th bonus tip that massively improved my immersion with the game. Also, to keep things organized in this video, I've split up the tips into 3 categories. Number 1 is where to go and what to do in Starfield. Number 2 is quality of life. And number 3 is progression, so where to find skills and gear, farming, all that good stuff. With all that out of the way, let's get into it. My first playthrough of Starfield started right when the game launched last year. I played through the tutorial about an hour into the game, and then everything just kind of opened up and I had no idea what to do next. So if you find yourself in that position feeling really overwhelmed after the tutorial, just keep plugging away with the main quest, play through a couple of missions, get through a couple of story beats, get to the first major world. You'll know what I mean when you get there. I'm trying to avoid spoilers. But once you get to this point, I think the game organically starts to open up. It just feels really overwhelming right after the tutorial. And I really highly recommend jumping into the faction quests as soon as they become available. They are kind of more side stories, but they're some of the best content in the game. I'm still thinking about some of them. They are awesome. Definitely check them out. Kind of a bonus tip here also, in your quest log, everything's organized by all of your missions, main missions, faction missions, miscellaneous, and then like activities. So if you're ever wondering which faction something applies to, just go to that faction tab and look at the different symbols and it'll tell you which faction you're actually doing that mission for. So number 2 in the where to go segment is talk to everyone. Named NPCs, random NPCs. You never know what you can find out from different characters in the game. You'll find all kinds of interesting information that might add to your quest log, might open up different interesting dialogue options or activities. It's always worth talking to people, but of particular note, make sure anytime you see someone with a name, so when you target them, they actually have a full name, first and last. And more than likely, they have a quest for you, so it's always worth talking to these people. Might be a little bit obvious in an RPG, big open world game, but I figured it's worth mentioning. This one kind of rocked my world, pun intended, as you'll see. When it comes to landing on different planets, I made the mistake when I first started playing of thinking that the nodes on planets were the only place you could land. So when you go to like a random moon somewhere, you'll usually see 1 or 2 major nodes that are like abandoned posts or science labs or civilian outposts, something like that. At first, I thought those were the only places you could land on planets, but actually, you can just target anywhere on the planet, press A, and set course for that, and you'll land on a tile set, basically, of that planet. And what's really cool is once you land on the planet, there's all kinds of new special points of interest that maybe you didn't see off the planet view. That actually piggybacks really well into tip number 4. It's almost like I planned this. One thing the game didn't have when it first started was a map of planets, which is crazy. Like when you're on the planet, there was no map that actually showed you where you were going. But through various updates, they've added surface planet maps. And now anytime you're on a planet, you can press RB in scanner mode and it brings up a surface map. It doesn't really give you much because most planets are pretty barren except for the interesting nodes or points of interest, but it's still a good way to just keep yourself oriented and a pretty basic feature that was missing. And just like that, we're a quarter of the way through the list. If you're liking this video, consider subscribing to the channel. We'd love to have you here. We post videos regularly about casual console gaming, and our goal is to help you maximize your playtime. Number 5 on the list, amps are your best friend. They're an aid item in the game, so kind of like where you find your med packs and trauma packs, but amps have a really cool feature where if you take one, it boosts your speed, your movement speed, by 35% for 2 minutes. This is like huge for exploring planets, especially when you consider how much distance there usually is between where you land and where you're trying to get to on the planet. This is a game changer. It's one of the best tips on this list. That's why it's the number 1 in the quality of life. Speeds up exploration, gets you where you need to go faster. I didn't even know about it till like 20 hours into my playthrough, so maybe you didn't either. Number 6, fast travel from your quest log. Now, there's actually a couple of ways you can fast travel in the game that aren't obvious, but you can actually go right to your quest log, select the quest you're on and the step you're on, press Y to show it on your map, and it'll bring up the galaxy map of exactly where you need to go, and you can just travel there. In most cases, this works so well, and it's much better than just navigating to your map, selecting a system, dragging around until you find the right system. Again, I spent so much time just like navigating through the map, going to different systems, scrolling through this giant thing, trying to find where I was going, click into the system, click the planet, land there. It just felt very cumbersome, and when I found out about this, it was a real game changer. Next up, I find that the inventory system in this game can be a bit frustrating. You don't have a lot of carry capacity, especially when you're gathering resources. So tip number 7 is Resources are by far the heaviest item type in your inventory, and the best thing about traveling with a companion is they are a pack mule with dialogue options. That's not my joke, I read that somewhere. So anytime you find yourself running into inventory capacity challenges, just offload resources in particular to your companions, and then grab them later and transfer them to your ship. Next up, there are a few resources that are super valuable that aren't always the easiest to find unless you find a really great planet that has all of the basic elements like iron, nickel, aluminum, things like that. A really cool tip here that I didn't realize until far later than I should have. Anytime you travel to a new system or to a new planet within the same system, there's a chance that you'll spawn like an asteroid field. And I never realized that you can actually just shoot these with your ship weapons, namely your laser and your missiles, and you can start to like gather resources from the asteroids. In most cases, what that meant was I had easy access to aluminum, nickel, iron. It just depended on the asteroid field, but it was always a good bet to check there first, and you could collect a ton of those basic resources you need, specifically for like outpost building and just gathering resources for building out your manufacturing empire. So I don't know about you, but I found ship combat a little bit challenging to begin with. I actually still find it hard, but I'm getting better. A sneaky little skill on the skill tree called targeting systems. When you unlock this, it's not necessarily obvious unless you read, which, let's be honest, I'm not very good at that clearly. But when you get that skill, it actually opens up almost like a VATS, if you remember in Fallout, the sort of slowdown of time, targeting different weak points of an enemy. It's that, but in space. And what it does that's really cool, first off, it just makes combat a little bit easier because you can focus down on enemy shields, engines, anything you want. But even better, you can target engines specifically, and then once you've destroyed an enemy's engines, you can board their ship and steal it if you want. Little bonus tip to this tip, that's a great way to find new ship parts, to get new ships. Anytime you're fighting pirates, you might as well, if possible, destroy their engines, board the ship, and see if it's worth taking. I'm a sucker for base building in any game that I play, and Starfield, no surprise, has a really great base building system in place. You can go to any planet you want, land there, and start building a little home in the galaxy for yourself. The challenge I kept running into is that there are a lot of resources you need for this. In particular, the one that really grinded my gears was sealant. What I didn't realize was that on any planet where there is a merchant, you should always check there to see what resources they're selling. Once I started adding this to my gameplay loop, it was so much easier to base build because I could buy my sealants, my aluminum, my control modules, adaptive frames, whatever it is you need or find yourself running low on consistently. Going to all the different vendors on every planet that you stop at is such a great call to make sure you have what you need when you're ready to keep building. Okay, final quality of life tip has to do with contraband. Yes, it's technically stealing. A lot of companions in the game really don't like that, which is maybe a tip in of itself is don't be a bad guy because the companions don't like that. But if you insist on stealing, or if you follow one of the earlier tips about the targeting system skill and you're stealing a lot of pirate ships, you'll find yourself very quickly traveling with contraband. Now, what is contraband? When you go to your inventory, you know an item is contraband because it has this little yellow symbol next to it. And that means that anytime you land on a settled system, one of the like major faction cities or planets, your ship will get scanned, and there's a chance you're going to get discovered for having contraband. You'll have to pay a fine, get arrested. There's not a huge consequence to getting caught with contraband other than the credit fine and just a little bit of disruption to whatever you're trying to do. But contraband can actually be worth decent amounts of credits in the game, so it's worth actually selling that rather than getting it confiscated. So the place I go to deal with contraband is called the Den. It's in the system Wolf, and it's on the left-hand side of the system when you get there. It's not actually a planet node, it's actually like a space station orbiting the planet on the left-hand side of the map. This is a place where there is no contraband scanning like some of the major cities, so it's a great place to go. You won't run into any trouble having to evade like Freestar or UC or anything like that. You can land, sell your contraband, and get the heck out of there and get back to whatever you were doing. Moving on to section number 3, which is all about progression, and oh, it's a humdinger. I don't know what that was. Tip number 12 on the list is invest in your ship early and often. You're gonna find yourself with credits in this game. There's a lot of distracting things to spend your credits on, but I strongly recommend you save it and apply it to upgrading your ship. Perhaps buying a new ship if you don't find any through pirate scavenging or anything like that. But the number one thing really is to upgrade all of your weapons, your shields, and your cargo carrying capacity on your ship. That is a lifesaver, specifically the cargo upgrades, because anytime you're on a planet and you're running out of room, you can quickly run back to your ship, dump everything there, and the bigger your cargo is, the more you can do that without having to stop somewhere to sell stuff and offload all that good stuff. Number 13, outposts. I could do a whole video on outposts, probably will, keep an eye out for it. But what I love most about Starfield's outpost system is that you can automate resource gathering, and you can put that towards researching new stuff in the game, expanding your base, all kinds of meaningful upgrades to your character that actually have a measurable impact on the game and make your life a little bit easier. It means this system has a lot more value than perhaps in other games where there's base building, because you're actually setting yourself up for success further down the road. So you'll notice when you find characters in the game that want to join your crew, one thing that'll jump out to you is on your sort of crew management dashboard, all of the crew members or potential companions have skills associated with them. I had no idea what this meant. I kind of just ignored it, but it's actually really important. Anytime you're traveling with a specific companion, take a look at the skills that they have. You'll notice stars underneath each skill. If it's a 4-star skill, that means they are fully proficient in that skill. And what's really cool about that is all you need is 1 point invested in that skill. And if you're traveling with that companion, it automatically gets boosted to a level 4 version of that skill. Rather than having to invest and complete all the challenges through that skill tree, you just get the best version of that skill just by having this person traveling with you. So that's really where building out a balanced crew matters for your ships. Look at the skills they have, look at the skills you've invested in, and try to find as much overlap as possible. You'll improve your skill proficiencies overnight just by planning this out properly. Second to that, but still pretty important, is that skills don't just stop and start with investing a point in them. When you go to the skill tree, you'll see all of these different nodes: tech, science, combat, social, things like that. When you invest in a skill, you might think, okay, I have it now, I'm done. But if you hover over that and click into the skill, you'll see there's actually 4 levels to each skill. And to progress and unlock the next level of a skill, which makes you better at whatever that skill is, you have to complete a challenge. You can also look to the left and it'll show you what the next challenges you have to complete to unlock the next tier of that skill. I think one thing with the skill tree is it's so broad, it looks like there's a lack of focus and maybe you can't really build a specific character type, but it's the challenges and the tiers of each skill that really open up unique play styles, because you have to invest in time using those skills and doing things related to those skills to unlock better versions of them and really build your character into those different categories. Okay, that was 15. I don't know, I lost count. I hope I'm right. We'll find out in the edit. That leaves us with one more tip for you, a super bonus tip. If you're still here, thanks so much for stopping by. Really appreciate your time. And again, like, comment, subscribe. It's really appreciated. Brand new channel. We'd love to grow more. So this is a huge improvement to the game for me. It massively improves immersion in the game. And it's something that's so obvious I've just never done before, which is turn off the subtitles. Yes, might sound a little crazy. It feels a bit disorienting at first because a lot of this game is meeting new characters and seeing their names as part of figuring out the context of what's going on. I've never turned off subtitles in games before because they're like a safety blanket for me. I love reading what's on the screen, but I've realized in doing this with Starfield that this is the way to go. So whether you're playing Starfield or another RPG or something that has a lot of cutscenes, I really recommend trying this because it's absolutely improved the Starfield experience and made me so much more invested in all of the stories and cutscenes and everything kind of narratively related to the game. But all of these tips, I hope, help you. They certainly help me love the game even more. I think it's a real hidden gem, and it's on Game Pass. It's free if you have Game Pass, so why not try it? You got nothing to lose. And if you have any more questions, check out this video right here before it disappears forever. We talk all about, should you play Starfield in 2024? Check it out. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Dylan. This is Beep Boop Loot. See you in the next one.